Welcome back. It is Uncle Phil with, of course, the Frixer. As you know, we've been breaking down every single division of the NFL, and we just can't wait. We're getting toward the end. Today, we're starting with the NFC North. We've got two more divisions after that. Then we're going to also do another one where we're doing our Super Bowl playoff predictions as well as Super Bowl. You'll want to definitely stay tuned for that one as well, because every year since 1990, there's been at least 4 new teams in the Super Bowl or in the playoff picture. And in 2022, there were 8 new teams in the playoffs. So really, it should be an exciting year. This year is certainly shaping up to be. You can tell our excitement, but it pales. Our playoff excitement pales in comparison to what we're still in the aftershocks. I would say Joe is in the afterglow of the big trade from Dallas, getting Micah Parsons back to his Green Bay Packers. I am going to make him wait. We are going in order. We are talking about the Chicago Bears, but then we'll talk about, Green Bay is still third on the list because we go in alphabetical order here. So Chicago Bears, tell me about the North. I mean, it's hard to get into the North without getting into Green Bay. Let's just start with Chicago. Tell me what your thoughts. You saw Caleb last year. Maybe you've seen him highlights this year. What do you think of Caleb? What do you think about this team? Chicago Bears, you weren't very positive. Dallas fans are angry. They've written nasty things about you on YouTube and other places about the Cowboys, and so they were down on you. Can you be any more positive for the Chicago Bears? I know they're a hated rival, but can you be any more positive about them?
How can I make my Chicago Bears commentary be about Dallas? No, I'm just kidding.
No.
So the Bears, I think the Bears are a giant question mark, and I don't know how it's going to go for them. It really boils down to the quarterback position, and nobody else does either. Nobody else knows either. Caleb Williams could turn around with better coaching, or he could bust right out of the league. And frankly, I think I'm leaning on bust right now, just because I don't like what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing out of training camp. I think he may have significant processing issues, and in the NFL, man, if you can't process a defense, I mean, if you're just trying to play backyard ball, like, that's not going to get it done. And so the question is, can he do it? If he can do it, you can coach him to do it. But right now, man, it's not looking good. But we'll just have to see, because it's possible Ben Johnson can get in there and work a miracle. And Caleb, has a ton of talent, in every other way. It's just, but if he doesn't have the head, for the game, then it's not for long for him. So that's where I'm at on the Bears. I mean, it just really boils down to that quarterback position. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I think it's two things. Look, in the defense last year, 2024 defense gave up a league worst 67 QBR from week 8 to the end of the season. So, I mean, it's more than that. But again, quarterback is the most important position. It starts with him. I don't like what I'm hearing. I didn't really care for a lot of the mental side of things from him at USC. I didn't like the body language at times. I wasn't a big fan of a lot of things that he was doing there. Certainly wasn't a fan of him and the lack of self-awareness. He and his dad were trying to be owners of whatever team they went to. And of course, the NFL's like, well, you can't, NFL rules, you can't be an owner. Just the over-entitlement was certainly there. You saw that. This week, he came back and said, hey, I just need to get back to being me. And you know what his definition of being me was? And somebody asked him, what's your definition of me? He goes, I'm going to go back to painting my nails. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I hate about what you're doing. This is what makes me like you less every time. I'm like, you're kidding. You're supposed to be the alpha. You're the guy who's leading people in the locker room. Instead, you're not talking to your teammates. You're sitting over the corner painting your nails. I don't get it. I mean, maybe that's a thing of a generation of that, but I don't think so.
Dude, if he's playing amazingly, like you ignore that and go, hey, that's kind of interesting, little colorful, character trait. But the fact that they're dragging bottom, everything stands out. That's the problem with Wayne right
typically when a guy's like, hey, I'm going to get to being me, it happens after a breakup. You're like, let me play some Rocky music. I'm going to go run the stairs. I'm just going to go work out like a fiend. I'm going to get back in the gym and just do everything. And I'm going to get back better than ever. And it's like, I'm going to get back to me. I'm going to paint my nails. And so for me, that was just bizarre.
If you remember the movie Bull Durham, right? He's coaching him up and he's saying, hey, you get to the major leagues and you're good. Mold on your flip flops in the shower. That's just character, right? But until then, you're just a slob, right? So that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Nobody like people would love the nail painting if he was also painting, the defenses with lasers, and he's not doing that right now. And he had 68 sacks last year. He's holding the ball too long, and he's apparently not processing. Can he process? That's the question, that we'll have to answer this year. Nobody really knows the answer, including the coaching.
Under pressure, to your point, 38% completion percentage when under pressure last year. That was 32nd in NFL if you were keeping track at home. So not really a great thing. We'll see how he does this year. I found it really interesting that they signed Tyson Bagent to a $10 million contract. That says something right there that they definitely want him in the building and there for a little bit. And you could certainly see this thing, to your point, going south when you start getting excited about signing your backup quarterback and you start all the comments that are very positive that coming out of camp that are about him. And then after he had this great game where, I did see positive things because, there's not much I can take from preseason, but I do see things about certain quarterbacks, where it was Cam Ward who took extra footwork that he's got to clean up. He's going to take some unnecessary sacks, or Caleb Williams. When you did see him against Buffalo, that game they won 38-0 against Buffalo Bills backups, is that they last year Caleb couldn't figure out, he was holding the ball too long. His thing is he holds the ball too long, goes backwards, hold it with one hand. So lack of ball security, the whole thing, bails out of plays. No offensive coordinator wants that. But what I saw him do in that game that you could see the influence of Ben Johnson is that his release time was a right around just a little bit above 2 seconds. And that is elite in the NFL. And that's where you want to be, because he couldn't figure out what was NFL open. A lot of rookies have a hard time adjusting to that, but you expect someone who's the number one draft pick to adjust to it a lot quicker. Granted, he didn't have much coaching. This is officially his rookie year, but he seems like an excuse maker to me. And he is out of excuses in my book this year. Vegas has their win total this year at they are at, we said the Cowboys were 5.5. Vegas thinks they're going to win 8.5 games this year. What do you think about that? This obviously would make the North the best division in football if the Bears are scheduled to make 8.5 wins. Do you think that they're achieving this or not?
I gotta be honest and say, if Ben Johnson could perform a miracle, then yeah, that should be achievable, because Chicago's got a pretty good roster, but it's going to take a miracle. And as you mentioned, it looks like they're getting their outs ready. They're preparing contingency plans and contingency narratives just in case their first overall draft pick is a bust, and they're going to find out sooner rather than later. I don't think Ben Johnson's going to mess around. He's I think that's why he was putting so much on him in camp. He was trying to sort of make him a pocket passer just to see what he could handle, and then they can kind of coach off of that. But I think he's going to find out sooner rather than later if this guy can play. And if he can't, they're already getting their alternative narratives ready, and that to me says no, they're not going to hit that win mark. But who knows? Hey, there was some doubt about Jordan Love. There's some people still doubt Jordan Love. So it is possible for these turnarounds to happen, but I think probability would lean to the negative. So.
The Frixer always shoehorning Green Bay into most every conversation, as always. But I do agree about Caleb. Look, last year, he's got to cut down the sacks. He's got to improve. When you get sacked 68 teams, it's not all on the offensive line. It's a lot on you at that point. It's got to improve his body language. I don't like that. He can't miss the wide open layups. A lot of times his eyes were in the wrong place. He just didn't have a clear grasp on the protection schemes there was a lot of that between the ears stuff that you saw that was kind of a weird deal. Again, he's used to playing. He had a terrible offensive line as his defense, and it was just kind of a carryover from USC where he didn't have a good offensive line there, and he just used to playing hero ball and uses his athleticism to get out of that. It's just not, you just can't do that in the NFL. The guys are too fast. Play more on time, less playground, and obviously, don't just go backwards in the pocket like Shadur Sanders does. They're kind of really the same guy, a lot of it. But Shadur is kind of a poor man's version of Caleb, I think. He's just not as talented, but they both have the same bad characteristics. It's out of having not bad offensive line and just not really good coaching in that regard. So we'll see how he does. I think the thing where it just caused Ben Johnson's bowling point to go over was in the last preseason game they played was against, I think it was against the Jets, and they did a jet sweep. The very first play of the game. And the first play of the game, literally, you've been practicing this all week. You're running it. It's the play you feel the best about. And it is a timing play. Caleb's in the shotgun, and they're doing a jet sweep. And you set the guy in motion, and your cadence depends upon that. It's timing. It's perfect. You should have it just timed perfectly. You've been practicing all week, and he fumbles it, and doesn't have that timed right with the guy he's set in motion, and they fumble it on the very first play, and you're like, you can't have that happen. You just can't. So there's some good things, and there's also some bad things you can take away from preseason, and that one particular play was a terrible thing, very frustrating to Ben Johnson, and deservedly so. We'll see what Caleb Williams done this year. I'm really hopeful his throwing talent it's off the charts. I'm just not sure if he has got it mentally, but again, no easy road for him this year. Going from the third easiest schedule to the seventh hardest. I think this team has a chance to be really rough to begin the year. We'll see how it goes, but I'm just not sure. Speaking of a team who has got lots of hope, but is in a big change, and that's Detroit. Detroit is this team who is they are just got this amazing roster, but had tons of turnover with Ben Johnson leaving, with Aaron Glenn leaving, both coordinators. They had 6 other assistants leave, so this massive brain drain. And then to top it all off, you had Frank Ragnow retire, your all-pro center and one of the best centers potentially in league history, as a lot of people say he is. But he retired after the draft, so you didn't draft a center, and you drafted a guard, and now he's a rookie, and you're moving him, sliding him over to center. How much do you really think a rookie on the interior line can do all that? Clearly your offensive linemen, their Wonderlic tests are off the charts, are typically the highest of any group out there that's super smart. They have to learn that for all the protection schemes. Mentally, can they get it? But can a rookie step into that position in the NFL?
We're going to have to see, but I'd say their season depends on it. Right. And the thing is, they have a great culture there. I remember, and you mentioned I pull the Packers in every commentary that
shoehorn them in. Go ahead. I wouldn't feel right if you didn't.
But I remember when the Lions played the Packers last year with a beat up defense, and they had guys they just signed off the street, and their defense played great. That game, like you're like, who are these guys? I never heard of these guys, and I think that speaks to their culture there, and what Dan Campbell has done with them. Like, I think it's really fun. He's created an environment where it's really fun to play for the Lions. They play for each other, and I think it's entirely possible that they figure out some way to plug the giant hole in the middle of their line. But I think their season does depend on it, because they have a quarterback that's somewhat immobile. He's got good timing and accuracy, but he doesn't do well under pressure. Nobody does well under pressure. Tom Brady doesn't do well under pressure. So if they can't protect him, they're going to have issues all season long. But I think Dan Campbell, whatever they're cooking there, has the culture seems to be able to be self-healing. And you contrast that with, say, a culture that's toxic, and and I mean, everybody's been part of like a a toxic work culture or whatnot, and like it just seems like everything's a loss. Like you turn victories into losses, right? Well, in a good culture that's rising, like somehow you can pull rabbits out of your hat, and that's because everybody's pulling together. So I don't discount the possibility that they can plug that hole, but if they can't, then they're going to take a step back.
Look, they're going to have to. I mean, it's going to be something. We talked about Goff. You and I talked about that. His Achilles heel is pressure, like a lot of quarterbacks, right? And kind of separates good from great. And he just didn't. Is not good against that. I mean, Washington blitzed him, and in the NFC divisional round, and he just looked really, really, really poor in that round. So. It will come down to that, but also, can Aiden Hutchinson stay healthy as well on defense? Because, with Aiden Hutchinson, I think he played. I know he played up to Dallas. That was the game what game was that of the season? That was the 5th game of the season, and through 5 games, he was far and away the sack leader for the Lions. And there were 12 more games left to play, and he still remained at the end of the year the sack leader for the Lions. So that's how important Aiden Hutchinson is to this team. And so critical for that, not only for Jared Goff to perform well, but they've got to perform well on defense. So they've got this roster, but it's kind of linchpin to 2 people. It's really kind of they're all. It's you could kind of do the whole thing and say offensive line, and just like a lot of times, and Aiden Hutchinson. Can those guys? Can the offensive line compensate for the loss of Frank Ragnow? Obviously the Eagles did it very well. Everybody thought that would be the downfall last year when Jason Kelce retired, and they were seamless. But can the Lions do the exact same thing this year? And then can Aiden Hutchinson stay healthy? An interesting deal. Okay, I've made you wait long enough. Talk to me about your Green Bay Packers. Tell me what you think about this Parsons trade. What does it do? Where was your, on a scale of 1 to 10, where was your optimism for the Packers this year? And what is it on a scale of 1 to 10 after the trade that your football dreams came true?
Well, I'm just going to say this before I talk about that. I think Jerry Jones may go down in Packers lore as being more highly regarded than Vince Lombardi. so I think they're preparing the statue right now of Jerry Jones for Titletown. But yeah, I heard everybody heard the rumors, but these things generally don't get done, and the Cowboys have a habit of taking these negotiations to the 11th hour, and they finally get them done. And this also is something the Packers never do. The Packers never go out and get a top free agent. I mean, it's very rare. I mean, they stick with their draft picks and they draft and develop. And so I was hopeful, but I did not believe it was going to happen. And then it happened, and boom, now we're all dealing with it. But it's a game changer, man, because if the Packers are weak anywhere, they're weak at corner. And the thing about the Parsons trade is that it gives them the ability to get consistent pressure with the front 4 without sending an extra guy, without blitzing, and that enables them. And they're also good at all levels of the defense, so you got Edgerrin Cooper in the middle, as a linebacker, and then Xavier McKinney as a great safety, an all-pro safety, and so they have strength at all levels, but they have issues on the edges. Well, they can hide their corners if they're not sending extra guys to get pressure, so they're going to get consistent pressure, and because they have quality at each level of the defense, I think the defense is going to be a strength for them this year. Even given the fact that man, I mean, the corner. If you look at the cornerbacks, you're like, these guys are shaky at best, But I expect the Packers defense to really make a splash this year. What do you think?
Well, they have to, right? And they for as kind of a no-name defense with some holes, they still performed pretty well. I mean, they were 8th in the total number of sacks in 2024. They were 12th in sack percentage in the NFL. and they were 13th in pressures. So they still made an impact without that. Their potential is top 5 defense with, obviously with Halfley, what he's doing there is just outstanding. I mean, a lot of times you don't see college coaches make that transition easily. He made it seamlessly from Boston College. He's done just a fantastic job. Look, I'm going to go so far as to say, look, the Packers only lost last year to the Eagles, Lions, and Vikings in games that mattered. Okay, in games they were actually trying to win. It doesn't count Week 18. Okay, and so they only lost those teams. If Jordan Love can stay healthy, if the receivers can catch the ball, and if Matthew Golden is who we think he's going to be and what he's shown in camp already, don't count on Jordan Love for MVP this year. Look at Jordan Love. I think he's a long shot. If you guys got a little extra scratch at home and want to invest, I think that might be an opportunity for an investment right now, because this is an opportunity for this team. A lot of people ask me for long shots. People are thinking about the usual suspects. I think Jordan Love is a potential MVP. We know a quarterback is going to win this MVP. It's not college. You're not going to have Travis Hunter win the MVP. You're going to have a quarterback do it. And Jordan Love has the opportunity to do it this year. Again, just a little tip from Uncle Phil to try to help your Christmas make it a little brighter.
Well, I'll go. Let me add on to that. Because I agree with you. I think he's a dark horse candidate, but not as dark horse as you might think, because he very quietly finished with a top 5. The 5th highest QBR last year, playing injured most of the season with the 31st ranked receiver room, in terms of net, net contribution, right? Yeah. So, they had the highest drops of any receiving room, in the NFL last year, and still the quarterback finished with a top 5 QBR. So that means, in my mind, that means his floor is he's top 5. Yeah, and I know he's not viewed as that, right? Because he hasn't put a full season together, that's splashy. But I'm telling you right now, I think his floor is top 5 quarterback, and I think the only, as a Packers fan, the only quarterbacks I would trade him for are Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Those are the only 2 quarterbacks I'm sure are at this point are better than him, and so I view him as a top 3 pick. I view him kind of on the level of a Burrow. But I'm really excited about the season, because I agree with you that if Golden is able to take the pressure off of the other receivers, right, and get them easier coverages, because he's drawing most of the attention, that could free up the entire offense.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Going to be an exciting season for them, for Packers fans and for non-Packers fans, just to see what they can do. But clearly, the biggest news of the week, and probably the entire season, is the trade that made Micah Parsons the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. And the Packers shelled out a ton of money to do that. But we can't stop there. There's another team that says, what about us? And that's the Minnesota Vikings. What do you think about the Minnesota Vikings? We've talked about their roster being, Philadelphia, Minnesota, Baltimore, all have elite rosters. So what do you think about Minnesota, and what do you think is going to be, what do you like about them, and what's your concern?
Well, I think O'Connell's a good quarterback coach, and I don't know what to expect from McCarthy, but if all they need to do, McCarthy doesn't need to do really much this year. He just needs to be a good game manager, because their roster is so good that that if he is not contributing to losses, he doesn't have to really contribute to wins. The rest of the team will handle the wins. So yeah, that's all that, and so it's a really nice situation to be if you're a rookie quarterback. It's about as good as you can find, other than the Eagles. So I think I think they're going to be good. The question is how good, and all that kind of comes down to, can they nurture McCarthy into a situation sort of like a Hurts, that he is he's not contributing to losses. He's not really contributing to wins, but he is managing the game plan. I think I think it's very likely they're able to do that, and they contend for the North.
Yeah, look, I mean, they've got the roster. I really like what they've done. They replaced their entire interior offensive line, right tackle, right guard, center. Ryan Kelly at center now, Donovan Jackson left guard, and Will Freeze at right guard. Should be a really solid team. I mean, this should feel right at home for J.J. McCarthy, kind of Michigan-esque. Just don't drive the bus off the road. Just keep it between there and don't play. Got amazing weapons to throw to. It should be good. We'll see how he's going to be. The knock on McCarthy right now, though, is that he's a little like Colin Kaepernick in the fact that he doesn't have an off-speed pitch. He just throws fastballs. And sometimes, if he can develop the touch, and to your point, you trust Kevin O'Connell as the kind of a quarterback whisperer. And also you've got Josh McCown as a quarterback's coach as well. Between those two guys, they should be able to straighten out McCarthy. I know Vikings fans, I've talked to a couple of them, they are feeling good about this. We will see. I mean, it really comes down to for the Vikings to realize their potential this year, J.J. McCarthy's play, the durability of the roster, and certainly the difficulty of the schedule. Their schedule this year is brutal as well. Not an easy schedule, but again, could be really good. We'll see. Kevin O'Connell turned Sam Darnold, who everybody had been giving up on as an all-pro quarterback last year. Can he do the same thing for J.J. McCarthy? And clearly Sean Payton has that gift of turning any quarterback into this. Sean McVay has that gift. Ben Johnson certainly did that with Jared Goff. We'll see what he can do with Caleb Johnson. We feel like Kevin O'Connell's kind of in that same group that can do things like that. Again, supposed to be that quarterback whisperer. We will see, but really exciting. I tell you what, the North, even if you're not a Packers fan, you're whatever fan you are, the North is going to be action-packed this year and going to be a fun one to watch. Man, this one is kind of a tough one to break down for me because, Tilly, you in other conferences, other divisions, you seem like you have two good teams and one clear bad team, and this one's a little bit different for me. What about you? I mean, I'm sure you don't have any problem at first, but beyond that, I'm interested to hear your take on this. It's time for the Frixer to rack them and stack them.
Well, the Parsons trade makes it a little easier. I'm always a little bit allergic to overhype, but now you just got to ride the hype train. I mean, you just got to ride it. You got to get on there and ride it. I saw this as a really difficult division and probably the toughest in the NFL again this year. And now I see the Packers as a clear favorite. Actually, in the NFL futures, they went from 9th to 6th for the Super Bowl win overnight because of that trade. They didn't give up much with Kenny Clark. He's just a good, solid guy in the middle. They got some rookies that can fill that hole. So that clearly, I think, puts the Packers on top of this division. Next, I would say I'm gonna stick with the Lions. I think they figure out a way to plug their hole in the middle of the offensive line enough that they continue to perform. I think the culture there is a beneficial, positive, constructive culture, and they're going to figure out how to do that. And then the Vikings right behind them. So Packers 1. Lions 2, Vikings 3, Bears. Bears could be improved, or they could be worse. So Bears a giant question mark. We'll just have to see about the Bears. But one thing about the Parsons thing, I heard this. I thought I should mention it. Is that the reason why Micah Parsons okayed the contract and thus the trade is that he finally wanted a playoff game in Dallas.
That is fantastic. Look, I think it's going to be a good one for Parsons. Look, he's used to kind of being a city who's around football. He went to Penn State. Happy Valley's kind of revolves around football. This will be the same thing for him in Green Bay. It should be a good fit. He's already got that relationship with Jordan Love. Jordan Love and he share the exact same agent. So that relationship's already been there. So I know he's excited about this. So it should be a really good fit for him. But I'm going to go with you. I like the Green Bay Packers to win this division. I'm going to switch things up, though. I think that I will trust McCarthy to do what he did for Sam Darnold. I will trust Kevin O'Connell to do with McCarthy what he did with Sam Darnold, and that roster just seems fantastic. It pains me to say this. I feel like that Detroit has missed their window. I feel like they went all in, and last season was their season, and then just the wheels came off the bus. And I will say Detroit takes a step back, and a significant one, and goes to third place. And then the Bears, of course, bring up the caboose in that, and who knows how that's going to go. So, guys, hey, thanks for tuning in. The Frixer and I are just having a ton of fun doing this. I hope you guys are enjoying too. Please like and subscribe. If you want a little extra action, excuse me, go to UnclePhil'sLocks.com. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Love to hear your comments on what you think the AFC North is going to be, and your comments on the Frixer's hate for Dallas still. He's shoehorning in Green Bay.
I love Dallas. What are you talking about? Every show's my favorite owner ever.
His hate for the Cowboys. So
they're casting his statue in bronze right now.
That is all the time we got. We got to shut the Frixer up. As always, let's roll.